Who was Lenin and what role did he play in the Russian Revolution? Vladimir Lenin, 1870–1924, was a Russian revolutionary and political leader who played a central role in the Russian Revolution of 1917. He was the founder and first leader of the Soviet Union, and a prominent Marxist theorist. Lenin was the leader of the Bolsheviks, a faction of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, which was committed to the overthrow of the Tsarist regime and the establishment of a socialist state in Russia. In 1917, the Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, seized power in the October Revolution, overthrowing the provisional government that had been established after the February Revolution earlier that year. After coming to power, Lenin introduced a series of reforms aimed at transforming Russia into a socialist state. He nationalized industry, established collective farms, and implemented a policy of war communism to mobilize the country's resources for the war effort. Lenin also played a key role in the establishment of the Soviet Union, which brought together the various republics of the former Russian Empire under a single socialist government. Lenin's ideas and leadership had a profound impact on the course of world history, as the Soviet Union went on to become a major global power and a center of socialist ideology for much of the 20th century. However, Lenin's legacy is also a controversial one, as his policies and methods were often criticized for their authoritarianism and disregard for human rights. Some text goes here are what were some of Lenin's key ideas and beliefs, and how did they shape the course of the Soviet Union. Some text goes here. Lenin was a Marxist revolutionary who believed in the need for a socialist revolution to overthrow capitalism and establish a socialist state. Some of his key ideas and beliefs include: 1. The dictatorship of the proletariat. Lenin believed that after the overthrow of the bourgeoisie, the working class should establish a dictatorship of the proletariat, in which the state is controlled by the working class, in order to protect the gains of the revolution and build socialism. 2. Vanguardism. Lenin believed that a small, disciplined group of professional revolutionaries, known as the vanguard, should lead the working class in the revolution. This idea led to the formation of the Bolshevik Party, which became the ruling party in the Soviet Union. 3. Imperialism. Lenin argued that imperialism was the highest stage of capitalism and that it led to the exploitation of countries in the periphery by the capitalist countries in the core. He believed that the struggle against imperialism was an important part of the socialist revolution. 4. War communism. During the Russian Civil War, Lenin implemented a policy of war communism, which involved the nationalization of industry, the requisitioning of grain, and the establishment of a command economy. This policy helped the Bolsheviks to win the war, but it also led to widespread suffering and economic hardship. 5. New Economic Policy, NEP. After the end of the Civil War, Lenin introduced the NEP, which allowed for limited private enterprise and market forces in the economy. This policy helped to stabilize the economy and improve living conditions, but it also led to a shift away from socialist ideals. Lenin's ideas and beliefs shaped the course of the Soviet Union in many ways. Under his leadership, the Soviet Union was established as the world's first socialist state, and his policies helped to modernize the country and improve living conditions for many people. However, his emphasis on centralized control and the use of force to maintain power also contributed to a culture of authoritarianism and repression, which had lasting effects on the country and its people. Some text goes here. How did Lenin's leadership style and tactics differ from those of other communist leaders of his time? Some text goes here. Lenin's leadership style and tactics differed from those of other communist leaders of his time in several ways. 1. Vanguardism. Lenin believed in the importance of a small, disciplined group of professional revolutionaries, known as the vanguard, to lead the working class in the revolution. This was in contrast to other communist leaders, such as Mao Zedong, who believed in the power of the masses to lead the revolution. 2. The role of the party. Lenin saw the party as the vanguard of the revolution and the vehicle for carrying out his ideas. He believed that the party should have centralized control over the state and the economy, which was in contrast to other communist leaders, such as Fidel Castro, who emphasized the importance of popular participation in decision-making. 3. Use of force. Lenin was willing to use force to maintain power and suppress dissent. This was evident in his implementation of the Red Terror during the Russian Civil War, which involved the killing of thousands of people who were seen as enemies of the revolution. Other communist leaders, such as Ho Chi Minh, tended to use less violent means to achieve their goals. 4. Pragmatism. Lenin was a pragmatist who was willing to make compromises in order to achieve his goals. This was evident in his adoption of the new economic policy, which allowed for limited private enterprise and market forces in the economy. Other communist leaders, such as Mao Zedong, tended to be more ideologically rigid and less willing to compromise. Overall, Lenin's leadership style and tactics reflected his belief in the importance of a strong, centralized party and the use of force to achieve revolutionary goals. While his approach was successful in establishing the Soviet Union as the world's first socialist state, it also contributed to a culture of authoritarianism and repression that had lasting effects on the country and its people. Some text goes here. What impact did Lenin's death have on the Soviet Union, and how did his legacy shape Soviet politics in the decades that followed? Some text goes here. Lenin's death in 1924 had a significant impact on the Soviet Union, as it led to a power struggle within the Communist Party and a re-evaluation of the course of the revolution. Here are some of the key ways in which Lenin's death impacted the Soviet Union. 1. Power struggle. After Lenin's death, a power struggle developed between Joseph Stalin and Leon Trotsky, both of whom had been prominent figures in the Bolshevik Party. Stalin ultimately emerged as the victor, and he went on to establish a totalitarian regime that was characterized by widespread repression and the cult of personality. 2. Revision of policies. After Lenin's death, there was a revision of some of his policies, including the new economic policy. Stalin implemented a series of rapid industrialization and collectivization policies that led to widespread suffering and famine. 3. Lenin's legacy. Despite the changes that occurred after Lenin's death, his legacy continued to shape Soviet politics in the decades that followed. His ideas and beliefs, including the importance of a strong, centralized party and the use of force to achieve revolutionary goals, continue to influence Soviet policy. 4. Personality cult. After Stalin's rise to power, he established a cult of personality around Lenin, portraying him as a hero of the revolution and using his image to legitimize his own rule. Overall, Lenin's death marked a turning point in the history of the Soviet Union. While his legacy continued to shape Soviet politics in the decades that followed, the changes that occurred after his death ultimately led to the establishment of a totalitarian regime that was characterized by repression and the cult of personality. Some text goes here. What lessons can we learn from Lenin's life and work, and how might they be relevant to contemporary political issues? Some text goes here. Lenin's life and work offer a number of lessons that are relevant to contemporary political issues. Here are a few examples. 1. The importance of political organization. Lenin believed in the importance of a strong, centralized political organization in order to achieve revolutionary goals. This lesson is relevant to contemporary political issues, as it emphasizes the need for effective political organization and mobilization in order to effect change. 2. The dangers of authoritarianism. While Lenin's ideas and leadership were instrumental in the establishment of the Soviet Union, they also contributed to a culture of authoritarianism and repression. This lesson is relevant to contemporary political issues, as it underscores the dangers of centralized control and the need for checks and balances to prevent the abuse of power. 3. The limitations of ideology. Lenin was a committed Marxist who believed in the necessity of socialism as the solution to the problems of capitalism. However, his policies also had unintended consequences, such as the suffering caused by the policy of war communism. This lesson is relevant to contemporary political issues, as it highlights the limitations of ideology and the need for pragmatism and flexibility in policymaking. 4. The importance of internationalism. Lenin was a committed internationalist who believed in the importance of solidarity among working people across national boundaries. This lesson is relevant to contemporary political issues, as it emphasizes the need for cooperation and mutual support in the face of global challenges such as climate change and economic inequality. Overall, while Lenin's legacy is a complex and controversial one, his life and work offer a number of lessons that are relevant to contemporary political issues. By studying his ideas and actions, we can gain insights into the challenges and opportunities of political organizing and governance in the 21st century. Some text goes here. What criticisms have been leveled against Lenin and his policies, and how have his defenders responded to these critiques? Some text goes here. Lenin and his policies have been the subject of a wide range of criticisms from various perspectives. Here are some of the main criticisms that have been leveled against Lenin and his policies, along with responses from his defenders. 1. Authoritarianism. Lenin is often criticized for his authoritarian approach to governance, which was characterized by centralized control and the use of force to suppress dissent. Critics argue that this approach led to widespread repression and human rights abuses. Defenders of Lenin argue that his approach was necessary in the context of a revolution and civil war, and that his policies ultimately helped to improve the lives of ordinary people. 2. Economic policies. Lenin's economic policies, particularly the policy of war communism, had been criticized for their negative impact on the economy and on people's lives. Critics argue that this policy led to widespread suffering and economic hardship. Defenders of Lenin argue that war communism was necessary to win the civil war and establish socialism, and that his later policy of the new economic policy helped to stabilize the economy and improve living conditions. 3. Nationalism. Lenin's approach to national self-determination has been criticized for its inconsistency and its negative impact on ethnic minorities in the Soviet Union. Critics argue that Lenin's policies on national self-determination were driven by pragmatic concerns rather than by a commitment to equality and justice. Defenders of Lenin argue that his approach to national self-determination was based on a genuine commitment to equality and that the Soviet Union was a multinational state that respected the rights of ethnic minorities. 4. Legacy. Lenin's legacy has been the subject of ongoing debate and controversy, with critics arguing that his ideas and policies led to the establishment of repressive regimes and that his approach to politics was fundamentally flawed. Defenders of Lenin argue that his ideas and policies continue to be relevant and that his legacy is a positive one, pointing to the gains made by workers and peasants under Soviet socialism. Overall, the criticisms of Lenin and his policies are complex and multifaceted, and they continue to be the subject of debate and discussion. While his defenders have offered various justifications for his actions and policies, his legacy remains a contested one, with both positive and negative aspects. Some text goes here. How have historical assessments of Lenin's legacy evolved over time, and what debates continue to surround his place in history? Some text goes here. Historical assessments of Lenin's legacy have evolved significantly over time, reflecting changing political contexts and shifting perspectives on socialism and communism. Here are some of the key stages in the evolution of historical assessments of Lenin. 1. Soviet era. During the Soviet era, Lenin was celebrated as a hero of the revolution and a founding father of the Soviet Union. His image was used to legitimize the Communist Party's monopoly on power, and his legacy was presented What was Lenin's vision for the future of communism and how did he plan to achieve it? Lenin's vision for the future of communism was based on the establishment of a classless society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the working class. He believed that this could only be achieved through a socialist revolution, which would involve the overthrow of the capitalist ruling class and the establishment of a dictatorship of the proletariat. Lenin's strategy for achieving this goal was based on a combination of political organization, mass mobilization, and the use of force where necessary. He believed that the working class needed to be organized into a disciplined and centralized political party, which would act as the vanguard of the revolution and lead the masses in the struggle against capitalism. In order to mobilize the masses, Lenin advocated for a radical program of land reform, workers' control of industry, and the nationalization of key industries. He also believed in the importance of internationalism, and argued that the success of the socialist revolution in one country would ultimately depend on its spread to other countries. In practice, Lenin's approach to achieving his vision for communism was characterized by a combination of idealism and pragmatism. He was willing to make compromises in order to achieve his goals, and his policies evolved over time in response to changing political realities. However, he remained committed to the ultimate goal of a classless society and the establishment of socialism as the basis for human progress. Some text goes here. What were the main challenges that Lenin faced in implementing his socialist policies in the Soviet Union, and how did he address them? Some text goes here. Lenin faced a number of challenges in implementing his socialist policies in the Soviet Union, particularly in the aftermath of the Russian Revolution and during the civil war that followed. Here are some of the main challenges that he faced, along with his responses. 1. Economic crisis. The Russian economy was in a state of crisis in the aftermath of the revolution, with inflation spiraling out of control and widespread shortages of basic goods. Lenin responded by introducing a policy of war communism, which involved the nationalization of industry, the requisitioning of grain, and the establishment of a command economy. While this policy helped the Bolsheviks to win the Civil War, it also led to widespread suffering and economic hardship. 2. Political opposition. The Bolsheviks faced opposition from a number of political factions, including the White Army, which sought to restore the Tsarist regime, and the Green Army, which represented peasant uprisings against Bolshevik rule. Lenin responded to this opposition by establishing a secret police force, the Cheka, which was tasked with suppressing dissent and maintaining order. 3. Nationalism and ethnic conflict. The Soviet Union was a multinational state that was characterized by ethnic diversity and conflict. Lenin responded to this challenge by introducing a policy of national self-determination, which granted autonomy to ethnic minority groups within the Soviet Union. However, this policy was often inconsistent and unevenly applied, and it did not prevent ethnic conflict and discrimination. 4. International isolation. The Soviet Union faced international isolation and hostility from capitalist powers, which sought to undermine the socialist experiment. Lenin responded to this challenge by promoting the spread of communism internationally, and by establishing the Comintern, an international organization dedicated to promoting socialist revolution. Overall, Lenin's responses to these challenges were characterized by a combination of idealism and pragmatism. While he remained committed to the ultimate goal of socialism, he was willing to make compromises and adjust his policies in response to changing political realities. Despite these challenges, Lenin's policies had a significant impact on the course of world history, and his legacy continues to shape debates about socialism and communism. What role did Lenin play in the development of Marxist theory, and how did his ideas depart from those of other Marxist thinkers? Lenin played an important role in the development of Marxist theory, particularly in his contributions to the development of revolutionary theory and practice. Here are some of the key ways in which Lenin's ideas depart from those of other Marxist thinkers. 1. Vanguardism. Lenin emphasized the importance of a small, disciplined group of professional revolutionaries, known as the vanguard, to lead the working class in the revolution. This idea departed from the views of other Marxist thinkers, such as Karl Kautsky, who believed that socialism would arise spontaneously from the struggle of the working class. 2. Imperialism. Lenin argued that imperialism was the highest stage of capitalism and that it led to the exploitation of countries in the periphery by the capitalist countries in the core. This idea departed from the views of other Marxist thinkers, who saw imperialism as a temporary phenomenon that would ultimately be overcome by the working class. 3. State power. Lenin emphasized the importance of seizing state power in order to protect the gains of the revolution and build socialism. This idea departed from the views of other Marxist thinkers, such as Rosa Luxemburg, who believed that the socialist revolution would need to be a spontaneous, mass movement rather than a seizure of state power by a vanguard party. 4. Party discipline. Lenin emphasized the importance of party discipline and centralized control over the party in order to achieve revolutionary goals. This idea departed from the views of other Marxist thinkers, such as Antonio Gramsci, who believed in the importance of popular participation and organic intellectuals in the revolutionary process. Overall, Lenin's contributions to Marxist theory reflect his emphasis on the need for revolutionary action and organization, as well as his pragmatic approach to achieving socialist goals. While his ideas have been the subject of ongoing debate and controversy, his legacy as a revolutionary thinker and leader continues to shape contemporary discussions about socialism and communism. How did Lenin's health problems affect his leadership and decision-making abilities, particularly in the later years of his life? Lenin's health problems had a significant impact on his leadership and decision-making abilities, particularly in the later years of his life. Here are some of the key ways in which his health affected his leadership. 1. Speech impairment. Lenin suffered a series of strokes in 1922 and 1923 that left him with a speech impairment. This made it difficult for him to communicate effectively with others and to participate fully in political debates and decision-making. 2. Reduced mobility. Lenin's health problems also affected his mobility, and he was often confined to a wheelchair or bedridden. This limited his ability to travel and engage in face-to-face meetings with other political leaders. 3. Cognitive impairment. In addition to his physical health problems, Lenin also experienced cognitive impairment in his later years. This made it difficult for him to engage in complex reasoning and decision-making, and he became increasingly reliant on others for guidance and support. 4. Impact on decision-making. Lenin's health problems had a significant impact on his decision-making abilities, particularly in the latter years of his life. He became increasingly reliant on others for advice and guidance, and his decisions were often made on the basis of incomplete or unreliable information. Overall, Lenin's health problems had a significant impact on his leadership and decision-making abilities in the later years of his life. While he continued to play an important role in Soviet politics until his death in 1924, his declining health made it increasingly difficult for him to exercise effective leadership and to shape the course of the revolution. Some text goes here. What were some of the key debates and factions within the Bolshevik Party during Lenin's leadership, and how did he navigate these internal conflicts? Some text goes here. The Bolshevik Party during Lenin's leadership was characterized by a number of debates and factions, reflecting the diverse perspectives and interests of its members. Here are some of the key debates and factions, and how Lenin navigated these internal conflicts. 1. The role of the party. There was a debate within the party over the role of the party in the revolution. Some members, such as Trotsky, believed that the party should be a mass movement that represented the working class as a whole, while others, such as Stalin, believed that the party should be a small, centralized vanguard that led the working class. Lenin sided with Stalin on this issue, emphasizing the need for a disciplined, centralized party that could lead the revolution. 2. The New Economic Policy, NEP, the NEP, which was introduced in 1921, was a policy of limited market reforms that allowed for some private enterprise and trade. Some members of the party, including Trotsky, believed that the NEP represented a retreat from socialism and that it would ultimately undermine the gains of the revolution. Lenin, however, believed that the NEP was a necessary measure to rebuild the economy and that it did not represent a fundamental change in the socialist direction of the Soviet Union. 3. National self-determination. There was a debate within the party over the issue of national self-determination, particularly in relation to minority ethnic groups within the Soviet Union. Some members, such as Stalin, advocated for a policy of limited autonomy for these groups, while others, such as Trotsky, argued for more radical measures such as the right to secede. Lenin initially supported a policy of radical self-determination, but later shifted towards a more moderate position that emphasized the importance of unity within the Soviet Union. 4. The role of women. There was a debate within the party over the role of women in the revolution and in Soviet society more broadly. Some members of the party, including Lenin, advocated for women's rights and for the promotion of gender equality, while others were more skeptical of these issues. Lenin emphasized the importance of women's participation in the revolution and the need for gender equality in the Soviet Union. Overall, Lenin navigated these internal conflicts by emphasizing the importance of party discipline and centralization, while also being willing to compromise and adjust his policies in response to changing circumstances. While his leadership was characterized by a degree of authoritarianism, he also remained committed to the ultimate goal of building a socialist society that represented the interests of the working class. Some text goes here. How did Lenin's personal background and experiences shape his political views and actions? Some text goes here. Lenin's personal background and experiences had a significant impact on his political views and actions. Here are some of the key ways in which his background and experiences shaped his political perspective. 1. Upbringing. Lenin was born into a family of educated, middle-class intellectuals, which gave him a strong grounding in intellectual and cultural pursuits. This background likely contributed to his intellectual curiosity and his interest in revolutionary politics. 2. Education. Lenin received a strong education in law and politics, which helped to shape his understanding of social and economic issues. His exposure to Marxist theory and his studies of Russian revolutionary history played a particularly important role in shaping his political views. 3. Political activism. Lenin became involved in revolutionary politics at a young age, and was heavily influenced by the revolutionary movements of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. His experiences as a political activist and organizer helped to shape his understanding of revolutionary strategy and tactics. 4. Exile and isolation. Lenin spent many years in exile and isolation, particularly during the period leading up to the Russian Revolution. These experiences likely contributed to his sense of political isolation and his conviction that a small, disciplined vanguard party was necessary to lead the working class in the revolution. 5. Health problems. Lenin's health problems, particularly his speech impairment and cognitive impairment, likely had an impact on his political views and actions in later years. His increasing reliance on others for guidance and support may have contributed to a more authoritarian approach to leadership. Overall, Lenin's personal background and experiences played an important role in shaping his political views and actions. His upbringing, education, and political activism helped to shape his understanding of revolutionary politics and Marxist theory, while his experiences in exile and isolation contributed to his sense of political isolation and the need for a disciplined vanguard party. Some text goes here. How does Lenin's legacy continue to influence politics and society in Russia and other countries today? Some text goes here. Lenin's legacy continues to influence politics and society in Russia and other countries today, both positively and negatively. Here are some of the key ways in which Lenin's legacy continues to shape contemporary political discourse. 1. Influence on the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. The Communist Party of the Russian Federation, which is the successor party to the How has Lenin been remembered and commemorated in Russia and around the world, and what controversies surround his legacy today? Lenin has been remembered and commemorated in various ways in Russia and around the world, although the nature and extent of these commemorations have varied over time. In Russia, Lenin's image has been featured on banknotes, coins, and monuments, and his embalmed body has been on display in a mausoleum on Red Square in Moscow since his death in 1924. However, the frequency and visibility of these commemorations have decreased in recent years, reflecting changing attitudes towards Lenin and his legacy. One of the main controversies surrounding Lenin's legacy today is the question of his responsibility for the repressive and authoritarian policies of the Soviet regime. Critics argue that Lenin's revolutionary ideas paved the way for the rise of Stalinism and the mass purges, forced labor camps, and other human rights abuses that characterized the Soviet era. Supporters, on the other hand, maintain that Lenin was a visionary leader who laid the foundation for a more equitable and just society, and that the excesses of Stalinism were a perversion of his original vision. Another controversy surrounding Lenin's legacy is the question of his relevance to contemporary politics and social movements. Some argue that Lenin's ideas about revolutionary change, anti-imperialism, and class struggle remain relevant in the 21st century, particularly in the context of global inequality and environmental crises. Others maintain that Lenin's theories and methods are outdated and ill-suited to modern political realities, and that his legacy should be consigned to the past. Overall, the legacy of Lenin remains a complex and contested topic, with different interpretations and evaluations depending on political perspective and historical context. Some text goes here: how did Lenin's ideas influence other revolutionary movements around the world, and what role did the Soviet Union play in global politics during his lifetime? Some text goes here: Lenin's ideas had a profound impact on revolutionary movements around the world, particularly in the early 20th century. His advocacy of a vanguard party of professional revolutionaries, his emphasis on the importance of ideology and propaganda, and his critique of imperialism and capitalism all inspired socialist and communist movements in many countries. In particular, Lenin's theories and tactics played a key role in the success of the Chinese Communist Party under Mao Zedong, the Cuban Revolution under Fidel Castro, and the anti-colonial struggles of African and Asian countries in the mid-20th century. The Soviet Union, under Lenin's leadership and that of his successor Joseph Stalin, provided ideological and material support to many of these movements, and became a major player in international politics as a result. During Lenin's lifetime, the Soviet Union played a central role in the international communist movement, advocating for the overthrow of capitalist governments and supporting communist and socialist parties in other countries. The Soviet Union also engaged in a number of foreign policy initiatives, including the establishment of the Comintern, the Communist International, in 1919, which aimed to coordinate revolutionary activities across national boundaries. However, the Soviet Union's influence and reputation were also subject to significant challenges during Lenin's lifetime, particularly after the failure of the European revolutions of 1919 and the emergence of internal dissent within the Soviet state. Lenin's leadership during this period was marked by a series of compromises and strategic shifts, as he sought to maintain the viability of the socialist experiment in the face of external and internal pressures. Overall, Lenin's ideas and leadership had a significant impact on global politics during his lifetime, and continue to be studied and debated by scholars and activists around the world today. Some text goes here: what sources should people consult if they want to learn more about Lenin and his impact on world history? Some text goes here: there are many sources that people can consult to learn more about Lenin and his impact on world history. Here are some examples. Some text goes here: Lenin's own writings and speeches, including his key works such as What is to be Done? State and Revolution, and Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism, as well as his collected works and selected volumes of his letters and correspondence. 2. Biographies of Lenin, including Robert Service's Lenin, a biography, Victor Shebestian's Lenin, The Man, the Dictator, and the Master of Terror, and Lars Thiele's Lenin. 3. Historical accounts of the Russian Revolution in the early Soviet period, including Richard Pipes' The Russian Revolution, Orlando Figes' A People's Tragedy, and Sheila Fitzpatrick's The Russian Revolution. 4. Studies of Lenin's impact on global politics and revolutionary movements, including Karakali's The Stalinist Legacy, Ajaz Ahmad's In Theory, Classes, Nations, Literatures, and Paul LeBlanc's Lenin and the Revolutionary Party. 5. Critical assessments of Lenin's legacy and relevance today, including Slavoj Žižek's Lenin 2017, Remembering, Repeating, and Working Through, and Eric Hobsbawm's How to Change the World, Reflections on Marx and Marxism. 6. Online resources, such as academic journals, research centers, and archives that specialize in the study of Lenin and his impact on world history, including the International Institute of Social History, the Marxist Internet Archive, and the Journal of Lenin Studies. How did Lenin's ideas about imperialism and colonialism shape his approach to international relations and foreign policy? Lenin's ideas about imperialism and colonialism were central to his approach to international relations and foreign policy. He argued that imperialism was the highest stage of capitalism, in which dominant capitalist countries sought to control and exploit weaker nations and territories through economic and political means. In Lenin's view, imperialism created the conditions for conflict and war between nations, as well as exacerbating social and economic inequality within countries. Lenin believed that the only way to overcome imperialism and achieve true international solidarity was through the overthrow of capitalist governments and the establishment of socialist states. He saw the Soviet Union as a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples around the world, and advocated for the spread of revolution through propaganda, material support, and direct action. Lenin's approach to foreign policy was marked by a combination of pragmatism and revolutionary idealism. On the one hand, he recognized the importance of alliances and diplomacy in achieving Soviet goals, particularly in the aftermath of the Russian Civil War and the country's isolation from the rest of the world. On the other hand, he remained committed to the principles of internationalism and anti-imperialism, and was willing to support revolutionary movements and governments even at the risk of antagonizing powerful Western nations. One example of Lenin's approach to foreign policy was the establishment of the Comintern, the Communist International, in 1919. Which aimed to coordinate revolutionary activities across national boundaries. The Comintern provided ideological and material support to communist and socialist parties around the world, and played a key role in the spread of revolution in countries such as China, Cuba, and Vietnam. Overall, Lenin's ideas about imperialism and colonialism shaped his approach to international relations and foreign policy in profound ways, and continue to influence debates about global inequality, conflict, and solidarity today. Some text goes here. What impact did Lenin's writings and speeches have on the Russian Revolution and the wider socialist movement of his time? Some text goes here. Lenin's writings and speeches had a significant impact on the Russian Revolution and the wider socialist movement of his time. His ideas and strategies helped to shape the direction and character of the revolution, and influenced the development of Marxist theory and practice around the world. Some text goes here. One of Lenin's most influential works was What Is to Be Done? Published in 1902, which argued for the need to create a disciplined and centralized revolutionary party to lead the struggle against capitalism and imperialism. This work helped to shape the organization and tactics of the Bolshevik Party, which would eventually seize power in Russia in 1917. Another key work by Lenin was State and Revolution, published in 1917, which argued for the abolition of the bourgeois state and the establishment of a new socialist state based on workers' councils, or Soviets. This work helped to shape the Bolsheviks' approach to state power after the October Revolution, and influenced debates about the nature of the socialist state in other countries as well. Lenin's speeches and writings also played a key role in mobilizing workers, peasants, and other oppressed groups in Russia and around the world. His calls for revolutionary action and socialist internationalism inspired millions of people to join the struggle for a better world, and helped to create a sense of solidarity among disparate groups and movements. Moreover, Lenin's writings and speeches had a profound impact on the development of Marxist theory and practice. His contributions to Marxist thought, including his ideas about imperialism, the Revolutionary Party, and the socialist state, continue to be studied and debated by scholars and activists today. Overall, Lenin's writings and speeches were instrumental in shaping the Russian Revolution and the wider socialist movement of his time, and continue to influence debates about socialism, revolution, and social justice today. What legacy has Lenin left on the world, and how has his image and reputation changed since his death? Lenin's legacy on the world has been significant and complex, shaped by his ideas, actions, and the historical circumstances in which he lived. He is remembered by many as a revolutionary leader who played a key role in the establishment of the world's first socialist state, the Soviet Union, and who helped to inspire and support revolutionary movements around the world. At the same time, his ideas and actions have been the subject of debate and controversy, both during his lifetime and after his death. One of the key legacies of Lenin has been his role in the development of Marxist theory and practice. His contributions to Marxist thought, including his ideas about imperialism, the Revolutionary Party, and the socialist state, have had a profound impact on debates about socialism, revolution, and social justice around the world. Moreover, his emphasis on the need for a disciplined and centralized revolutionary party has influenced the development of communist and socialist parties in many countries. Another legacy of Lenin has been his role in the establishment of the Soviet Union and the spread of socialism around the world. While the Soviet Union faced many challenges and criticisms, including accusations of authoritarianism, repression, and economic inefficiency, it also represented a powerful alternative to capitalism and imperialism for many people around the world. Moreover, the Soviet Union provided material and ideological support to anti-colonial and anti-imperialist movements in many countries, and played a key role in the defeat of fascism in World War II. Since his death, Lenin's image and reputation have undergone significant changes. In the Soviet Union, he was venerated as a founding father of the socialist state, and his image was ubiquitous in public spaces and cultural productions. However, after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, his legacy came under increased scrutiny, and his role in the development of an authoritarian and repressive regime was widely debated. Today, his legacy continues to be the subject of controversy, with some seeing him as a visionary leader who fought for social justice and equality, and others seeing him as a ruthless dictator who prioritized power over the well-being of his people.